Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome back to episode 246 of the podcast. And, we know now the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. And if you recall, in listening to episode 243, Setting Our Own Agenda, I discussed our inability. I'm talking about Black people in America. I discussed our inability to establish a plan or a direction for ourselves, our people, our communities, because of the absence of unity. Now, we're just a week or barely a week from the presidential election, the election of Donald Trump, the loss of Kamala Harris, and the online conversations by Black women are discussing us, kind of submitting our collective resignation from what we've decided somehow was our responsibility of saving democracy or saving America. Now, no one appointed Black women as the saviors of democracy. How can, and this is a question that I think is not an unreasonable question, how can we save democracy for a nation and we have not saved our own communities, our households, our communities? We are leading in the negative social statistics, and we are well behind in the positive social statistics. If we're discussing fatherless homes, incarceration rates, poverty, heart disease, death by heart disease. In fact, Black women lead that. Cancers. We, our people, are at no loss of issues. However, I think our preponderance in these negative statistics show that our focus has not been where it should be. And our hopes, and I think this is clear by the dependency and the interest that we put in election or presidential elections. Our hopes have been in government systems to change the course of our communities, to change the conditions of our communities, instead of our collective efforts and attentions to resolving the challenges that we see in our communities. So I believe it is time that we refocus. And after you listen to the following statement from Joy Reid, it appears that we are finally waking up to the reality that we must consider ourselves first.
I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing. I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any Black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure Black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition. I think that's probably not happening. I would just keep those invites maybe among your own friends because I don't think they're coming. But yeah, I think Black women are now on the Save Black Women, Prioritize Black Men, and prioritize Black communities, Black businesses, and that. And the Black spaces, but Save America, Save the Democratic Party. Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
So from this clip and her saying that Black women are now on, saving Black women and prioritizing Black men and the Black community. I mean, and now we are. And it's, there's no better time than now, but this is something that should have been top of mind well before. I think that we are well overdue, long overdue, from prioritizing ourselves, our men, our households. And it is a shame that it's come on the heels of this major disappointment. But perhaps this is the exact wake up that we do need. I believe that this election showed what others are prioritizing as their own interests. And frankly, it is time that we did the same. It shouldn't have had to come this way. But regardless, I believe it is good that we have gotten here. I'll say, though, that let's be very mindful that prioritizing self does not mean that we're mistreating anyone. It does not mean that we are ill-intended. And prioritizing self is certainly not revenge. Like, well, I'm going to take my ball and go home. Well, no, it's not that. It is being self-interested. And what we must recognize is what other people already know, is that you should take care of self and home first. Charity starts at home, and then it spreads abroad. And Black women have, I'll say, been over charitable and concerned ourselves with everyone but our own people, everyone but our own homes. And I mean, in a broad sense, the idea that we thought that we could, take our staff, take our sword and go out there and save democracy. Let's bring that energy home. Let's bring that energy into our communities. And I do think that we thought that, by helping to shape government systems, bring people into elected office, that would do that. But, that's us still looking for saving from the outside. And the work is for us to do on the inside. And so we have to tend to home base. Others have siphoned all that we had to give. And because we are one of the greatest resources in the world, our efforts weren't turned away. However, now with this political disappointment, this wake up, or this should be the clarity that we need to do something for self with those who are closest to us, those who are most interested in us, those who we should be most interested in, and that's our men, and where we live, our communities, and they have the greatest needs. We don't need to take this posture in anger. This is a posture that we should take in gratitude that, we were kind of shocked to consciousness of all that we have been neglecting, the energy, the knowledge set, the skill set that we have or that we employed to go out there and fight for democracy is the same that we should be bringing, to our people, to our communities, to our schools, to our streets, the attention that we should be giving to our young women, to our young men, to our husbands, our fathers, our uncles, our nephews. This is the, the platform or the field that we should be playing in. And I should also say that I've also seen posts online where they're listing companies that supported Donald Trump or who, gave him money towards his campaign. And I suppose the idea is that those companies will be boycotted. I will say, thinking about that or preoccupying ourselves with that kind of stuff, I think it's a distraction. It's a distraction from the reality of the work that we must do at home and where we should be focusing our work. If we are not centering ourselves and the needs and the goals of our communities, we will continue to be lost and we will be perpetually losing. those statistics that we are leading in, those negative outcomes that we are leading in, and the great outcomes that we are trailing in, we should be focusing our energy there, not because someone else is the standard, right? So, for example, we'll say that, Black men are so many more times likely to pass away from prostate cancer than white men, or Black women are so many more times to die in childbirth than white women. First of all, they're not our standard. These are issues that we should be aggressively attacking by getting information that we need to understand how these conditions are caused, and then get knowledge to understand how these conditions are prevented and or cured, right? Instead of focusing on where we stand or where our outcomes stand in relation to others, that can be a distraction. Now, that might be helpful as a gauge, but if we keep making other people our standard, we will be lost and perpetually losing. We have to establish our own standards. So, Black women, let's keep this energy of centering self. I'm not talking about the selfish self of just Black women, because, if we're not including our brothers, our men, our children, our sons, our daughters, in our efforts and in our campaigns of change, then that's just not going to work. So let's keep this energy of centering ourselves and our people. But I also must add a caution to be careful if or when they open the door back to us, that in our excitement to be considered, that we forget or drop our priorities. When someone turns away from you and you grieve rejection, and then they say, no, you can come in, and then we get excited, right? During that grief of rejection that we might be experiencing right now, look around and see the good in it. Find the good in it. The good is us realizing we have to center ourselves. Now, when they come back and open the door, don't forget what you realize our priorities are. So let's keep centering ourselves. Don't be deceived. Don't be tricked. Remember that we have to set our own foundation and take and learn from what we've been shown. 1, we have to reassess our collective needs. 2, we have to establish our agenda. 3, we have to work collectively together. And then 4, we have to stay unified. We have to stay unified. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property. And to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@norahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.